What's up, guys, and welcome back to MOV Plus. So we're going to circle back around to that warm-up. This has a few pieces to it. So part one, we have 1 minute of cardio of your choice, so you can decide what you want to do there. What we're going to do is a box jump over. So the demos, a special guest demo today in the back there. So we got that for 1 minute, okay? We then move into the next part, which is going to be 2 minutes to do as many rounds as we can of 20 jumping jacks, which are going to look like this, into 10 sit-ups, which is going to look like this, and then we're going to move into 5 up-downs, which is going to look like this. So those 3 movements will cycle for that 2 minute block. We then go into the last 2 minute block, which is going to start off with 20 skips. So we've got our skipping rope. Always good to have it undone before you start the workout. There we go. So regular single unders. Okay, that's going to move into 10 sit-ups again, so what we looked at last time with the ab mat, and we go to 5 burpees, so quite similar to those up-downs, but now we're going to go chest to ground and a full jump at the top. So that is the warm-up. Em, you good to go?
Yep.
All right. Starting in 10, so we've got our minute of cardio of choice. We can do our box jumps. Remember, you can do what you want there. Be a little creative if you want to. And go for it. So the whole purpose of this first minute, guys, is just to allow the body that nice ease into things. If you've been sitting still all day, maybe you've been at a desk, maybe you've been driving, the hips feel stiff, we want to take the time to allow the body to warm up gradually. What we don't want to do is roll straight into build or straight into move or straight into that finisher, feeling like the body's still a little cold and a little stiff. So this is our time just to start with something simple and elevate the intensity gradually as we go. Now, one thing you'll notice with this box jump over, Em is landing in the middle of the box, so she has a nice quick turn at the top. That way when both of her feet hit the ground, she's already facing back in again. The other thing to notice is we've gone a deliberately small box rather than a 20 or 24-inch box. It's going to slow things down. Gone for something nice and easy so you can just allow that nice easy flow into the movement. Okay, 3, 2, 1, and going into the second section. So we've got jumping jacks for 20, into sit-ups for 10, and then up-downs for 5. That'll rotate for the next 2 minutes. So we'll go from the 1 through to the 3 minute marker on the clock there. So once we finish the 20 jumping jacks, we go into that ab mat. And if you don't have an ab mat, guys, that's okay. You just work with the flat ground. That's fine. This just adds a little bit more support if you need it. Okay, so going from there, so we want to see the knees butterflied out, feet together, and our 2 markers are going to be tapping the ground above the head and tapping the toes at the top there, getting that nice kind of open, close feel through the abdomen. So once we hit 10, we're going to pop up on the feet and go to 5 up downs. So basically just setting up into a push-up position and then standing tall. You can always work with a wider stance if you find it a little bit hard to get those hips up nice and high and make that movement happen. So just under a minute left in this second section, and then we'll move into the third section once we hit the 3 minute marker. So it's a nice rebound with the feet. It's not a stop and like a jump squat sort of thing. As soon as she hits the ground, she's bouncing to the next step. All right, back onto those ab mat sit-ups. So using the arm swing there to create a little bit of momentum, so it becomes more of a full body movement rather than it just being dialed into just the abs. Allows us to crank that heart rate up a little bit more as well. Okay, 10 more seconds. So you might get 1 or 2 up downs. 3, 2, 1. So we're going into this third section now. So 20 skips. So just your normal single unders is good, guys. You can always throw double unders in there if you're an absolute monster with the skipping, but that's up to you. Think about that nice vertical body position. So try not to hinge at the hips at all. We go back into those same 10 sit-ups. So that middle piece stays the same from that second section. Always aiming to keep the hips nice and still so that we're not seesawing over that ab mat. Okay, and then we're moving into burpees. So this is sort of the upscale from the up down. It's a little bit bigger. We go a little deeper at the bottom, going fully flat to the ground. And then we have that little jump at the top as well. Good, good. Nice, all right, back to the skips. So just under a minute to go. Okay, into the sit-ups again. Twenty more seconds. Okay, and moving to those burpees for a couple of reps. You've got 10 seconds left. 3, 2, 1, and done. All right, guys, that is the warm-up done. Take a little bit of recovery time, and then we're going to check out build next. All right, guys, we're going to check out the build workout now. How this one's going to run is we have a 9-minute time frame to work with, 3 sets to get through. The first movement we have is the Bulgarian split squat. So we'll be doing 10 reps on one side, 10 reps on the other, and that's going to look like this. So elevated back foot, very similar to a lunge. Okay, we do 10 reps on one side, 10 reps on the other. We then go into 10 to 15 reps, and you can kind of decide there which number you go with, but on a skull crusher. So this is with a weighted object, laying down, doing a tricep extension. So with 3 sets and 9 minutes, obviously we're roughly trying to stick to about a 3-minute window if you can. So ideally we can get through the workload in maybe about 2 or so minutes, then that gives us a little bit of rest before the next round. Em, you good to go?
Yep.
All right, starting in 10. All right, going in 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So with this one, guys, any kind of elevated surface behind you is fine. Obviously, Em's using a chair. It's a pretty common household item, but stack of plates, whatever you got, you might happen to be lucky enough to own a bench at home, something like that. Doesn't have to be excessively high, just anything that's going to prop the feet up. Probably wouldn't do anything above about knee height though, so try and pick something lower than that. And then, as I mentioned, guys, it's very similar to a lunge or a split squat that we would do flat on the ground. The Bulgarian part just refers to that elevated back leg. So you're going to find that the leading leg is going to do more of the work versus a normal grounded split squat. So really looking for nice vertical posture on this. We don't want to have ourselves tilting forward or anything like that. Nice vertical shin on that front leg too. So although the front leg is going to do the majority of the driving, that back leg will be a support mechanism, and you do want to kind of feel like you're loading back into it as well. So we're going to move down to the ground now for the skull crushers. So these get the affectionate nickname because obviously we go very, very close to the top of the head. Ironically, the goal is not to whack yourself in the skull. So just make sure you're nice and controlled with this one. You're going to keep the elbows close, and if you notice, and this is very, very important, Emily's upper arm from her shoulder to elbow there stays very, very still. So elbows are always pointing pretty much up at the roof, maybe possibly back behind her, a little bit angled back. And it's just the elbow down to the hand that actually moves and pivots through there. So 10 to 15 reps, you can kind of decide how much volume is appropriate for you. If you feel like 15 is going to take you too long to allow for you to get a rest in there as well, just do 10. Okay, if you feel like you're moving through this pretty smoothly, you got through the split squats fine, you can do 15 if you have a little bit more time to fit those in. Nice, all right, so we've got just over a minute's rest until the next round, so having a little bit of a chill, doing some stretching if you want to, and then we'll start the next one at the 3-minute marker.
It takes a little while to get the hang of this. You're really good.
So 30 more seconds and we'll hit that next set. So hopefully you're definitely clear of that last lot of skull crushers there, having some recovery time. right, getting ourselves ready. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. Now guys, let's discuss how the foot is set up on the chair there. Now it looks like she's just put her foot there, but Emily's obviously done this a lot of times. She knows the exact spot she wants to be on, and we do need to be fairly specific about this. If she sets up hanging on the edge of her toes, like her foot is too far off the seat, she's always going to feel like she's going to fall off it and her foot's going to slip. Okay? If she's too far into the seat, she's going to feel like her ankle gets blocked on the edge of the seat. So what we really want to aim for is the shoelaces, right? When you set your foot up on there, you'll see she kind of wiggles her foot into position till it's on the laces of her shoes. And that gives us a good support, but also a good pivot point as well. So that's really important to set that up. Now, depending on how high you make that, that chair or that ledge behind you that you're using to put your foot on, you might be able to get your knee to the ground, but that's not necessarily like the target you have to hit. It's more about what kind of range you can get to whilst maintaining good position. We can see that Em can stay nice and upright, keep the shin vertical, nothing gets out of place, and she can go right down to almost like an inch off the ground. And when we set up for the skull crushers here, guys, laying down, we want to have both feet, hips, shoulders, and head planted on the ground. And good idea to have the shoulders somewhat active. So not necessarily a full retraction like we would do for, say, like a floor press or a bench press, but just active. So they're kind of just drawn back into their sockets there, so they're staying nice and still. We don't want to feel like we're protracted where we're out really far away and there's a lot of movement going on there. And she's going to come down just on top of her head there, about a centimetre clear of the top of her head. And that way she gets a really nice deep bend in the elbow, because that's what we're trying to target, is that tricep muscle at the back of the upper arm. So the deeper the bend there, the more we get to work that. All right, so another consistent round there, another minute or so rests, and we've got one more round to get through. Okay, 30 more seconds and we hit that final round. Okay, so 10 seconds. So remember, this is where we want to take that time to get the foot in the right spot there. You can see it's just at the edge of the front of her ankle. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. Now, one of the errors that's fairly common with this one, if you haven't done it much before, or if you're sort of losing focus because you're getting fatigued, is the foot that we're standing on. So this is our main driving force, tends to pitch up to the toes, right? And Emily's making really sure that she's keeping her heel flat to the ground, so she really gets the hamstrings, the glutes to really push through that heel. Okay, so she's taking that time to set up again. Okay, if you feel like you're too cramped, too close to that chair, hop the foot out a little bit. Okay, and if you really struggle with balance, set yourself up next to a table or a bench or something like that, or a doorway. You can just have a light kind of fingertip touch there just to control that balance. But again, we can see that foot staying nice and grounded. She's not getting up on the toes there. All right, so that's that one done. We're going to move to the last set of the skull crushers. Remember, the number option's up to you guys. It's either 10 or 15 or somewhere in between. With this being the last round, obviously we're not going to need to worry too much about allowing for a rest phase. So you can always go up to 15 in this last one. And work with a nice slow tempo as well. If the weight that you happen to own at home doesn't feel particularly heavy for this, slow it down, 3 seconds down, 3 seconds up. Even add in pauses if you want to, but that's up to you. If you find that when you're doing this, you feel a little pressure in the low back, it usually means that you've kind of relaxed your core a little bit too much and you're kind of getting leaned back. As that weight goes back, it's kind of pulling you with it. So stay nice and active through that midsection. It's a similar story with the shoulders, right? A little bit of activation goes a long way just to hold us in place. Nice. All right, so we've got about 1 more minute left on the clock, guys. If you're still going, go for it. That's cool. And then we'll have a look at the move section in a moment. Okay, 30 more seconds left on the clock, guys. Hopefully you are getting to the tail end of those skull crushers. Last 10 seconds. And that is time. All right, that was the build section, guys. To have a bit of a chill, we've got a finisher coming up next. Alrighty, guys, we're going to check out the finisher now. This is going to be all about the midline. So what we're going to see is a 5-minute EMOM, and what we'll do each minute on the minute is 30 Russian twists, which are going to look like this. So going back and forth, and then in remaining time, you're going to go into a tuck hold. That is holding like that. Okay, so 5 minutes. You put in the rest where you need to, but obviously try and maximize how much work you do. Em, you good to go?
Yep.
All right, starting in 10. So this is a 5-minute EMOM. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So with this one, guys, we're looking at body positioning. Feet are together, toes pointed, knees together, and the upper body is rotating. So we're thinking about moving not only just the dumbbell, but our shoulders, our head, our whole rib cage. So you want to get that feeling of that kind of corkscrew through the midsection. We also have the added challenge of balancing on the back of our butt with this. So we're going to 30 on this. We do that every minute on the minute, and then remaining time now. So we've got about 30 seconds or so moving into this tuck hold. So it is a very similar position, if not the same position. So this will get very, very taxing. As I said, you put in the rest where you need to, but we're just trying to get in as much as we can. It is a finisher, so this being at the end of the workout, you want to empty the tanks, hold on as long as you can. Okay, 10 seconds. All right, 3, 2, 1, and go for it. Now looking at if you need to scale this, guys, the obvious thing is to take the dumbbell out of it and just do it with your hands. That would be just touching your fingertips to either side on the ground there. You can also put your feet on the ground as long as you're still leaning back and keeping the tension on those abs. So if you are using a dumbbell, guys, make sure you don't get into the habit of bouncing it off the ground. This is something that's quite common if people use a weight plate. They will kind of bounce it off, use that to their advantage. We want to make sure it's a nice, strict movement. So although you don't necessarily have to go super duper slow, we just want to make sure we're not thumping it off the ground and using that bounce rebound. So again, balancing on the back or the top of the butt here, arms are out in front. Now, one of the things that's very, very tempting when you get tired is to actually hook your thumbs underneath your legs and hang on to yourself. We're not going to do that because that's going to take away from how much work the abs are going to do. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So this is primarily going to get into what we call the oblique. So this is the kind of the sides of the abs. This kind of runs around underneath the ribs, between the ribs and the hip bone there, that side part. And this does all of our sort of rotation stuff, but also stabilizing sort of side bending on that sort of thing. So very important when we're looking at our big compound movements like squatting, deadlifting, cleans, that sort of thing. That's going to be really stabilizing that midsection. So we can see Em's getting into this nice pattern, and it's a repeatable pattern of once she's done the 30 Russian twists, she takes maybe a couple of seconds, maybe 5 seconds tops, just to have a little breather. She goes into this hollow tuck, and then if my prediction is correct, she's going to have a little rest for the last 10 seconds of the minute. Okay, and that just helps reset her before the next one. It's all good to go right up to the buzzer, but you want to make sure you can start this next set well as well. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So 2 more rounds on this. One of the things we'll try not to do is cross the ankles over. This is something we'll see stereotypically with this movement. People will cross it over just to make it a little bit easier. What you'll find will happen is one leg will be working harder than the other, which means one hip and one side of your abdomen is going to be working harder than the other, and that's going to create a little bit of an imbalance. Now, that might not affect us too badly if it's done once off, but we get in the habit of doing that every time. That can throw things off through that midsection. So better that we do what Em's doing there, and that is just pinching the feet together, pointing the toes, having both legs working equally. Okay, 10 more seconds. So about to roll into the final round of this finisher. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. And if you find yourself losing balance with this, guys, just slow the movement down. That's totally fine. Even if that takes the 30 Russian twists longer out of the minute, that's okay. We just fill up the remaining time, whatever that might be, with that tuck hold. But it's better if you feel like you're kind of falling back, that sort of thing. Slow it down and make sure you can maintain that balance position. And as I said, if you need to just put the heels on the ground for a moment to steady yourself, that's okay too. Okay, so that's that short little break she's taking there just to get a recovery in, and then we got the last 30 or so seconds just hanging out in that tuck hold. So really thinking about ribs down into the belly. We don't want to have a straight torso and feel like we're really overloading through those hip flexors. We want to feel like the whole abdomen down into the hips is working as a team. So it'll be kind of a similar feeling to when we do like a hollow, but instead of us being on the low back, we're on the top of the butt. Last 5 seconds. And time. All right, that is the finisher done, guys. We're going to check out some stretching next. Alrighty, guys, now that all the hard work's done, we're just going to go through a little bit of cool down work just to stretch and finish things up. So first thing we're going to do is a seated hamstring stretch. So chuck a timer on, we'll do 45 seconds on each side. The setup here is one leg out, toe pulled up to the top, and we're going to tuck that other leg in the inside of the thigh. So when we do this, guys, we want to think about, are we wanting to get into the hamstring or are we wanting to get into the low back? Because we can kind of emphasize one or the other. If she's wanting to go hamstring, what she's going to do before she even comes forward to the foot is sit really tall and then try to pivot at the actual hip itself. So the hinge is there and the spine will actually stay in a fixed position, very similar to when we do, say, a deadlift or a squat. If she wants to target the low back, what she's going to do is just curl over and round that low back and go to a position where she feels a stretch but doesn't force the stretch. Okay, 3, 2, 1, and come back. So switching legs. Now, if you happen to be particularly tight in the hamstrings, guys, what you'll find is that getting to the toe might be not an option just yet. So what you can do is you can actually hook your hands underneath your hamstring and use that as the anchor point. So again, we're going to sit tall, just have a little bit of pull on that and try and get the chest forward, create that little bit more tension on the hamstring. You can, if you're really, really tight, actually go hands behind you, and that's going to help kind of pull yourself up nice and tall. That might be more than enough stretch for you. So just work with what level you're at. We'll go 15 more seconds on this one. Three, 2, 1, and that's that, the first drill done. We're going to go into the second, which is going to be a Samson stretch, but we're going to tweak it a little bit. So we're looking at a tricep stretch at the same time. So setting up in the lunge, we're going to take the left arm up over the top, and we're going to grab it with the right one and put that left arm into a really nice deep bend at the elbow, and just kind of winding across to me. So we'll still go off this running clock here. We'll go 45 seconds each side. Now, notice with this, one thing, she's got a little bit of padding under the knee. That just allows us to stay in the stretch for long periods of time without stressing about discomfort on that kneecap. The other thing to notice is it's a very long lunge position, right? It's longer than our normal one. So we want to really be able to push those hips forward, open things up through there. And we want to have the sense that we're kind of dragging that stretch side over the top. So she's trying to lean across to me. We'll go about 10 more seconds. Okay, if you want to start switching around, 3, 2, 1, and sitting up the same way. So the purpose of us kind of getting into this position is that we're going to kind of stretch a few different things at once. So one obviously is that tricep in that top arm stretch, but that's going to extend down into a little bit of lats. We'll get into all the muscles sort of in between the ribs, into the obliques, down into the hip flexor and down to the quad. So it's a whole line of muscles with this one, which is really good because it means it's nice and time efficient. We can hit a lot of things at the one time. So she can also kind of tension on, tension off. So she might rock back for a second, relax that elbow over, and then push forward again, pull that elbow back across. And done. All right, so those are your 2 drills, guys. If you've got time, let's go through 3 or 4 rounds of that, loosen things up, get that body feeling really good. Otherwise, we will catch you next time, and that's been your Move Plus workout.